Hey guys, today was a pretty busy day. I just finished up with all my sessions and running a couple of errands. I had just some random thoughts, so I said, let me go ahead and, eventually I want to become like super disciplined with the videos, right? Because one thing that I know, is motivation is super unreliable. Okay, this is not an original concept, but it's something that I think about a lot because I can't rely on it. I can't rely on the motivation. If I were to rely on motivation, like my success with things would depend on whether or not I feel like doing it. And most of the time I don't. You know what I mean? So something that I was just thinking about, and I'm looking at my phone because I took some notes. All right, so boom. If it cost your peace, your clarity, or your purpose, in my opinion, it is too expensive. But that's only because that is only once you realize that your peace, your clarity, and your purpose is like non-negotiable. So I think you have to get to that place first. And in order to get to that place first, you have to know how badly you need those things and how much not having those things is in the way. Like it's getting in the way of your life, right? And your life goals, even if you don't know exactly what they are. But more on that later. The random thing that I was thinking is like, sometimes like everybody comes to therapy in a different frame of mind. Like they have different reference life experiences. Some people are just, the idea of therapy is so strange. And something I want to really talk about is, yes, the stigma behind it, especially in certain communities. And it's gotten a lot better from, in my opinion, but it's still a real issue, right? And also it's so, like, there is no spectrum, I think, in the general population's mind sometimes. Like, either you've got mental health issues and something is really wrong with you, or you don't. And my thing is, we all have, just like we have physical health, everybody has that. Now, the way it looks and the status of your physical health, like, there could be many things that play into that. And I think that's similar to mental health. People seek out therapy for all kinds of reasons, but if nothing else, I just want people to know that it's just like, it's fine. People come to, I'll speak for myself, like, people seek out services for so many different reasons, ranging from like, sleep issues and, just feeling like, how you can feel like you're just down. Um, you know, Work stress, there's a lot of, worried well. I feel like at that level, like whatever you would consider worried well, like that is okay to seek therapy, but it takes a level of awareness to even notice that you're not at your most optimal functioning. I know, and I have great empathy for people who don't realize that they're not functioning well, right? Or because it looks good on paper, let's say financially you're doing great. On paper everything looks great. So it's like very hard to tell that you could benefit from therapy. Now, do I think everyone needs therapy? There was a point in time where I would say yes. I would say yes, absolutely. My answer is a little bit different now because I think that whoever wants therapy is right for therapy, right? I think it's appropriate if you want it, right? Or even if you're willing. Let's say willing. That comes before want, because some people don't necessarily want it, but they're willing to go. They're willing to participate because they understand that what they're doing at this point is not working. So they're just willing to go. And so that's all I need, is like the willingness, right? The willingness. And I have done, some mandated services and things like that. So I'm not saying, that cannot be beneficial, but at this point, I need the willingness, you know. But it takes a certain amount of awareness, and even to some extent, to be set in certain beliefs, to seek out therapy. But people are able to obtain these things in other ways, and I personally think that is okay. Also, I'm not the one to make that determination. And also, think it's important to know that your opinions on therapy, you weren't born with them. They exist because you've been impressed upon with these ideas, and access to different sources to shape the way that you feel about it. And I just had to be real about it. But anyway, sometimes I like to address therapy, like the process, like your life is a movie, okay, or a video game or a book to me. So let's rock with the movie. For example, like, I'm trying to make you the film director, okay? Yes, you're the main character. You're also like responsible for the behind the scenes. There's other characters in your life, and you want to make a decision about how they impact you, and not leave it up to external forces to determine how you're going to feel, right? So that is sometimes the reason people seek out therapy, is because there's too much external control. Depending on the day, the weather, someone's attitude, what's going on at work, that informs you on how you're going to feel and how you're going to move. So we're moving from that to you making that determination of how you're going to feel and how you're going to move. And it's not, I don't think you can skip steps. First, there has to be a level of awareness to your emotions. You have to be able to label your emotions and understand what you are feeling. You have to understand what you are feeling, right? And it's my opinion that you can't be wrong about that. So it's one thing to label an emotion incorrectly, like you've got the wrong word, right? But once you figure out the right word in terms of definitions, I don't think anyone can tell you that you don't feel this way. For example, someone I don't think can tell you that you're not upset, that you're not mad. If you are, then you are. Now, if you don't want to be, cool, but that's just an additive. So you first have to acknowledge, like, hey, I'm mad or I'm sad, a lot in this situation. I don't want to be. Okay, so you've got the actual thing and then what you want. And we're trying to get there. So as the film director, there's lots of decisions that have to be made. If we're gonna look at your life like a book, first of all, it's a free book. The book called Life is gifted to you, right? So let's say we're in chapter 25 right now of your life, right? Everything leading up to that is important. Yes, and we want to understand that, right? But also, like, you're writing the rest of the book. So it's up to you how that's going to end, or that's how that's going to be from here on out. That is a decision, and several decisions, a sequence of decisions that you have to make. Also, sometimes you have to look back on certain events. A lot of times that's your childhood, and rewrite the narrative, right? So such and such happened when you were 12. Okay, now we have to go back and kind of rewrite the narrative. And by that I mean, when experiences take place, we tell ourselves the story about it. Okay, what happens, what you can see, that's what happens, what takes place, what's on the tape roll. But you tell yourself a story about that, right? So here's an example. I'm not the best with analogies sometimes, but let's just rock with it. So something could be occurring outside of this building, like a huge building. And people are looking out the window, different windows, to see something play out outside. We're all looking at the same thing, but people are going to have different interpretations of what happened. And you best believe they're going to bring their personal experiences into the way they narrate that. Okay, into the way they explain what happened. The way they explain what is taking place, right? So I don't know that there's a right way or a wrong way to do that. But when you're 3, when you're 5, when you're 10, when you're in your 20s, and I don't think it ends. So there's a way you tell yourself and explain to yourself what happened. And so imagine a 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 12-year-old trying to explain to themselves what has taken place, especially if there's not an adult beside them. And it does not have to be anything super traumatic, but you can imagine, the impact when it is something traumatic, right? But we don't even have to go all the way there. Just imagine someone at these different developmental stages trying to explain to themselves what has just occurred. There's a whole bunch of things that's going to influence that. And if you're doing it as someone who does not have a fully formed prefrontal lobe, then who knows what you're telling yourself, right? And so it's not just you telling yourself that, you believe it now. And so the experiences you have after that, that's the lens that you are seeing them through, right? So it's almost like everything is kind of jaded. And so it's important to understand what is making your stuff jaded, right? And I'm using that word because I don't have another one. I also don't think that there is one version of the right way to see things. Everyone's going to see it differently. I think what's important is that you understand how that impacts you, like how the stories that you tell yourself impact you. That, I think that's where the power lies. And once you can have a good understanding of that, I feel like the sky's the limit. So yeah, this video was all over the place, but so was I today. I had a few sessions, and now I'm about to run into Home Goods and grab a couple things, but I just wanted to hop on here really quick, and who knows what the point of this video is, but I did it when I didn't feel like it, because I'm just relying on discipline, and I'm trying to do one a day. So here we are.